without further ado, let's invite Aaron to the stage. Aaron Reinhardt has spent his career solving complex, challenging engineering problems and transforming cybersecurity practices across a diverse set of industries, and probably cringing very hard on my cybersecurity habits, right? His talk is the next evolution of chaos engineering tooling, and I've been told from a very hot source that this is kind of the first time that this is being talked around the world. So let's welcome with a big round of applause, because we are a small stage, Aaron Reinhardt to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you much, Rico. Thank you. Morning, everyone. I promise you I will try not to keep you too long from your lunch. So we'll get through this, keep this tight. Like Rico said, this is the first time I've given this talk publicly. So it's been about a year since I've done any public speaking, because I've been heads down working on this project. I believe this to be the future of all chaos engineering is going to go this direction. If you don't know what chaos engineering, we're going to cover that so we can get you up to speed on that. And we'll have plenty of time for questions, or we can just form a line afterwards and chat. So I've gone to a lot of conferences in my career. I get it. You're on your phone. You're checking your Facebook or whatever it is. But half listening is okay, because I do it. So I get it if you're just nodding along. But if you do have questions, I'll be here. I have written a few books too as well. So a little bit about me. I'm currently a senior distinguished engineer at CapitalOne. Since we're in Europe, if you're not familiar with CapitalOne, they're a large bank, a large financial services company, credit cards and whatnot, auto, but they're a large bank in the United States. But a very technologically advanced bank. They're known publicly for being 100% in the AWS cloud. I can tell you since joining that is true. And that is very hard for a large enterprise bank like CapitalOne to do that. I'm the former CTO and co-founder of a startup called Verica. I co-founded that with the creator of chaos engineering at Netflix, Casey Rosenthal. I'm former chief security architect at United Health Group, largest healthcare company in the world, and I have a background in safety and reliability engineering at NASA. So I speak a lot about chaos engineering, resilience in software. I co-authored a book on security chaos engineering, 2 of them actually. My co-author was here yesterday. If you guys got to see her, Kelly Shortridge, she gave the evening keynote. She's an amazing speaker. So if you didn't get a chance to see her, make sure you check out her talks on YouTube. She is remarkable. And I'm known for being sort of the pioneer behind security-based chaos engineering. So fundamentally, what the problem is our systems have evolved in complexity beyond our human ability to mentally conceive, mentally model, mentally understand what is going on. There's too many things. Things are changing. They're changing rapidly. That's software. We change it, right? But the thing is that there's an inherent relationship between making a change in software and complexity. So if you have a complex system and you want to make it simple, you're going to have to make some changes to it, right? You're actually, in the process of making it more simple, you actually make it more complex. And so it's really not about trying to simplify. It's about trying to navigate that complexity. So this is a recent quote I got from SREcon, Site Reliability Engineering. Will Gallego is sort of a big voice in that space. There's so many different definitions of resilience, but I really like this one. Is that resilience is adapting to the unexpected. The creators of resilience engineering would say it's having the capacity, adaptive capacity, the capacity to adapt, having enough people, like when you have an incident, there's enough people around to take care of it, or that you practiced your failovers, right? That you, it's creating capacity for when bad things happen that are surprise events, that you can actually respond. That's what it takes to be resilient. So what does all this stuff have to do with chaos engineering, okay? We're going to get to it, okay? How many people here know what chaos engineering is already? I mean, if you don't, it's okay. Okay, that's a little more than I've gotten over the past 6 years. It works. How many people have ever heard of Chaos Monkey? It's always more. It's always more. It's the same thing. Okay? Chaos Monkey was sort of the beginning in 2008 at Netflix when they started introducing, because what was happening is when they're moving to the cloud, believe it or not, Netflix's cloud transformation, when they're moving to the cloud, AMIs would just disappear for some reason, right? And that causes problems when you try to stream movies, right? So what they did is they built their services to be resilient to that problem. What they needed is a way to test for it. So they created Chaos Monkey to do that. During business hours, they would pseudo-randomly bring down an AMI in a service, and it would give engineers a well-defined problem to solve for. It turns out when you give engineers better definition, more context about a problem, they solve it faster and better. So this is another definition of chaos engineering. There's actually an official Netflix definition of chaos engineering. This is one I'm kind of using right now. It's a discipline of proactively introducing fault conditions or failures into the system and to make sure that it can handle those conditions when they occur. So if you think about things like retries, fallbacks, failovers, security detective controls, preventative controls, we design them for when X occurs, Y will happen, right? So when there's this X type of failure, then Y type of thing will happen. The problem is that logic almost never gets exercised until a problem occurs. And you're not sure whether or not it will do what it's supposed to do because the system is continuously changing. You may have drifted away from effectiveness, right? So that's what chaos engineering is about. It's about proactively we're not trying to cause chaos. It's a provocative name. It's been tough for me over my career working with chaos engineering with large enterprises. Senior executives hate the word chaos engineering. They really do not like it until they understand what it is. They love the practice, but then, can we call it something else? I've tried calling it something else. There's a lot of articles now, and there's content in the O'Reilly books too on how to make the case for chaos engineering. But I've tried different word verbiage, and sometimes it's like, oh, you mean like chaos engineering? I'm like, okay, yeah, I've come full circle, But anyway, chaos engineering is not about breaking things on purpose. There were a lot of cute slogans on the internet about break stuff in production. No, stuff is already breaking in production. We don't need to be doing that, right? We're trying to fix it on purpose, trying to verify that the system still does what it's supposed to do after it's been changed constantly. The problem is, there's a big focus on shift everything left. Right? Well, this is shifting it right, actually, because the production system, the live running it's an organism. There's so many different people with their hands in that live production system, and it's much more massive than we originally remember it being. And no one has a good understanding in their head of how that actually works. We all have a different understanding, but collectively, we all have the understanding. This will make more sense. So, chaos engineering, what we're trying to do with it is navigate complexity by asking the computer questions. Hey, computer, when X occurs, does Y still happen? When X occurs, does Y still happen? So we're trying to verify that our understanding, our mental model, is valid in the system. So what are the challenges? Why did I come here to talk about a new approach? What are the challenges? If you're not doing, how many people are doing chaos engineering here? Anyone? Are there companies at least? Anybody's companies doing it? Okay, cool. Well, there's some challenges in doing it. So, and I'm going to go over some of these. So, some limitations in the model. The model is inherently based upon 100% failure modes, meaning AMI goes down, right? That's 100%. That's 100% failure mode, right? The approach itself, when you bring in that much friction, you bring in that much of a injection, it causes engineering teams to have to stop. If I would say almost always at Chaos Experiment, the first time you run it, the system doesn't work the way it's supposed to. That means your mental model of the system was wrong. The system is not actually what you think it was. Actually, when we have incidents, that's the same thing, by the way. When the system goes down, you find out, oh, hey, that thing worked differently, right? Chaos engineering you can think about as a way of sort of proactively sort of trying to discover those things that cause incidents before they happen. It's really what we're trying to do. So yeah, so limitations are really in that it causes too much friction for engineering teams for the most part, because it's 100% failure modes. We still learn a lot, but the thing is, if chaos engineering is like all other testing, if we're not keeping pace with the chaos testing world, with the rate at which we're releasing, even when you release slow, I mean, you have to keep pace, or else you're drifting. You're drifting away from effectiveness. So if you found Let's see if you found an issue, a latent defect in the system through a chaos experiment. You're already 10 releases later. You may not have actually fixed anything. You may have reintroduced the problem. So I actually like this. So John Willis might appreciate this. We have John Willis in the audience here, if you all know him. This actually comes from the world of safety engineering. I adopted it a little bit to create a better understanding. I think the gray failure, I'm seeing this in my research, gray failure is one of the most important domains of research right now in systems engineering, is that Microsoft has done a lot of work here as well. So we left the focus on black and white failure in the world of operations. System is up, system is down. Well, it's actually hard to keep the system up. It really is. We have a lot of people working to keep that thing up and running. We do lots of things to make sure it doesn't go down. That you log into. For me, from a product perspective, if I log into it and I can't access my balance, I'm probably just going to log in later and see if the problem's gone. But if every time I get into the application, there's like it's like running slow. I'm not sure if it's my Wi-Fi, my connection, my phone, my computer, whatever. And I'm not getting errors, or I'm getting errors, right? That is an inconsistent level of experience that is likely to cause a customer to say, okay, I'm not getting what I'm paying for. This is not an experience that I want. I'm not valuing working with this provider, this product. So I'm more likely to leave at that point and go to someone else. Because at the end of the day, the customer is the whole point of all we do. Did they get the value that they signed up for? So what is latency squeeze injection? I got to get a better name for this, but it really just describes the methodology by which we're using. John knows I'm historically bad at naming things. So actually, it's one of the hardest problems in tech is naming stuff, if you guys have that problem. But anyway, the idea was originally, I worked on it with Casey Rosenthal, the creator of Chaos Engineering at Netflix. We came with this idea that you could use latency similar to sonar. Anybody familiar with how the Navy, or how they use sonar to map the ocean's floor? Anybody familiar with that? No? Okay. So essentially, they use audible pings, sound, and they eject it into the water, and it comes back, it bounces back. If it bounces back, you can see how far away something is, and you can map the ocean's floor. Essentially, what I'm doing, we all know what latency is, right? Latency plagues systems engineering for 30 years, right? Or more, or longer. Our thesis was that we could use latency like sonar, is that we could inject degraded performance into the system in the form of latency to find out and map the safety, or the point where the edge of the cliff is in the system, to give people a sense of where the line is. That way, because you have no intuition to know where the edge of your system is until you have an outage. Oh, there it is. Then you're scrambling, you're backtracking, trying to figure out what went wrong. What we're trying to do is proactively give engineers that intuition. So Also, I think with this methodology, we've created one of the first ever ways to verify and test SLOs. Because we're actually injecting the degraded performance, and we can see how far away your goal or your objective was, because we're slowly stepping up injection. Oh, as a byproduct of this, so you see over here, I'm going to go through an example of a pilot we did early on at CapitalOne, so you guys get an idea of how this works in the real world. But we were able to sort of validate circuit breakers when were effective in the right place. They were tuned correctly. Engineers, we mostly guess. We guess at retries. We guess at timeouts, TTLs. We guess at capacity. We guess at sizing. It's usually pretty good guesses, but when we find out it's wrong during an incident, then we recalibrate, we fix it. It didn't have to be that way. With the byproducts of doing this, we found out that we can actually give engineers empirical data. The engineering teams at CapitalOne love this tool because they're able to, the first time, be able to get actual information if they need to increase their retries or decrease them, or whether their timeouts are too long or too short. That is super useful. So what we're trying to do is, so as an engineer, so if you spin up 1,000 instances in AWS, you have an intuition that the bill will go up, right? It'll cost a lot of money, right? So your economic boundary. Right? So if you're up for 3 days straight, pounding out code, banging out coffee, like you're eventually get tired, burn out, and exhausted, right? Your physical boundary, right? But you have no intuition, like I said before, to know where the edge of your system is until you hit it or fall off of it. What I'm trying to do with latency squeeze injection is I'm slowly stepping up. So what I do is, so let's say you have an SLO of 200 milliseconds. It's a very common SLO for availability. So what I will do with latency squeeze injection is I'll start with, let's say, 120. I will inject 120 milliseconds of latency into the service, and I'll watch for HTTP 500s, 5XX errors to see, or tail latency, to see, does the service start to have a problem? I'm slowly stressing it, slowly, gracefully, right? We're stepping into it. Let's say at 120, we're good. Everything's good. No stress, no problems. Break it down, we go to 140, right? 160, right? We keep doing that until, let's say we get to 170. Then I see a brief spike. There's always, in running this at CapitalOne, there's always this brief spike. Then it goes flat, then it falls, right? That's the graph, right? So we see there's always a tremor before the actual quake. But what I found is when we find that tremor, what do we find? We found the edge, the actual edge of the system, right? So we usually use things like TPS to calculate sizing and whatnot, but you can't account for latency because latency is a product of the internet. The fact that we haven't used TCP/IP wasn't designed to do what we're doing with it. It's a product of the host, your cloud provider. It is a product of the network. But it's so unpredictable. It's queuing and releasing, queuing and releasing. So when you all of a sudden get an increase in TPS, transactions per second, that you weren't expecting, you didn't know that, if you didn't know that you had this latency queuing up and releasing at the time, you're gonna fall over immediately. So the example, I kind of gave the example with Sonar, but the idea is that as we're doing this every day we're doing this. We're stepping up the injection slowly, that we're painting that edge. So before I found it at 170. That's where the actual, your SLO was 200. That means you think you can handle 200 milliseconds of latency, but you only handle 170 before you start to approach the edge of the cliff. Well, why is this valuable? Why is this valuable? This is valuable because if engineers knew they were heading towards the edge of the cliff, they would log in, break glass. They would do anything they could to keep that system from falling over and customers to encounter pain. They just don't know that they're heading towards the edge. So the idea is to give engineers a heads up. Even if it's 15 minutes, that's enough time to communicate to people, hey, we're gonna go down, right? Let's start preparing. Like, the idea is we're being proactive and we're exploring. By doing this, we're exploring. You remember the graph, the Gaussian curve I showed, the bell curve? We're exploring that vast area of gray to try to figure out, is the system still effective? So this is a graphical representation of what we do. So there's a couple different patterns we use for the injection. I plan just before, I'll be speaking at the IT Leadership Summit in Las Vegas, and I plan to open source a tool that kind of demonstrates how to do this. That's my goal, at least. We'll see if we get there. But this is briefly how it works. So, like I said before, we step up the injection. We do usually 4 or 5 waves, and there's a series of patterns. What we found out, actually, in doing this, we found out is that, this is sort of a step through here. I'll come back to that. But there's several different ways latency manifests in our systems. Is that, and certain types of latency trigger different aspects, like circuit breakers. It's actually a longer burst will trigger the circuit breaker into effect. And we also have a Le Mans test. I call it the Le Mans. We originally called it the endurance test, but I named it after the popular race, 24-hour race, because it's a 24-hour race for the application. We're slowly introducing waves of latency to try to profile where the edge is and how it's changing, to give the applications an intuition to know how their performance changes throughout the day. Typically, our experimental life cycle is we set up a pre-testing environment. We do it mostly in QA. Right now, we're doing this mostly in QA. Our plan is to sort of get in production by end of year, but we're learning so much in QA. It's become a very valuable tool that we're really more focusing on the kinds of things we can do with it. We perform the system boundary scans, one of the 3 scans I showed before, and then we assess the results, and then we continue to rerun. So what the team you'll see in a second, what they did originally when they started running it was that they, like I said, almost every chaos experiment, the first time you run it, it fails. Meaning the system didn't really work the way you thought it did. So they do the test, then they recalibrate, and then they do the test, and then they learn. Then they have to go fix the system, and then they keep testing, fix until they get to a point where it's more like a regression test. So our early pilot, so we actually started doing this at CapitalOne with the front door. So we figured, okay, what is the most high TPS thing we have? It's login, customer login, right? Customer login it gets banged on the most, right? So we started some of the results we found out in doing this were that a lot of the components we had in there, like the circuit breaker, was actually in the wrong place. Because engineers had no feedback for it until they had a problem. The retry logic needed to change; it was too high. What we found out in doing this is that if we had not done these tests, we would experience at least a 3C or above. 3C for CapitalOne means a Sev3 incident, means it impacts X number of customers. And we don't like Sev3s. We don't like high severity incidents. I don't think anyone else here does. So before, you'll see on the left here, when we ran the test, you'll see that the health checks were failing by 40%, only the first 2 minutes. The containers were turning unhealthy before even opening up a circuit breaker. That means it was in the wrong place. And CPU utilization, memory utilization spiked, causing threads to be blocked. So this right here is the pattern that would have caused the Sev3C. Afterwards, the team, what they did was after they ran the test, they found out they had to reduce the connection timeouts to fail faster. They implemented a connection validation timeout. These are the kind of things they did as a response. I put this example up here so you guys can kind of see what the thinking was, what the team was doing as they were doing the experiment. They found out that their system couldn't handle what they thought it could, and gave them enough information to implement these configuration changes to make it successful. And this is what the LSI looked like after they made those changes. But what this team does now in particular, they're sort of our lighthouse or our flagship proof point for the tooling, was that now they run it like regression every day. Right? They run it, that way they know if they've deviated from effectiveness. So, like I said before, it allowed teams to have an apple-to-apple comparison of before and after making configuration changes. I make a config change, I run the test to make sure nothing changed, that it's still as effective as it's supposed to be, that their scaling policies, their health checks, their circuit breakers, their fallbacks, the failovers, all that remained effective. So what is it, in the end, it's funny when you sort of invent something new, it's hard to, I don't know if you guys ever struggle with trying to explain it to other people. I struggled explaining it to other engineers. I figured that out. Then I had to explain it to executives. And I came up with this the other day. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're now running millions of chaos experiments. CapitalOne has been chaos engineering for 9 years, longer than most companies, especially a large bank. Okay, they fail over 2,000 applications, if anybody's familiar with AWS, to one region, 4 times a year. They do that. The whole company fails over, right? We learned a lot through that process, but so we do lots of chaos engineering, but we're only doing in the scale of like, I don't know, 100, a couple hundred, how to pull out 100 events. Now, we're doing millions of chaos engineering experiments because, remember what I explained before, is that chaos engineering is too much of introducing 100% failure. We're not introducing 100% failure, so there's not as much friction and toil as a result of it. We're slowly introducing degraded internet, degraded performance into the application to see where does it start to stress. We're not straight up killing it. We're slowly perturbing it to understand it. And that's what the point behind this is. Also, as a result, we found a way to test SLOs. That's great. Now we know that whether an SLO is out in Jupiter or closer to Earth, right? Because you can actually, SLOs are still kind of a guess, but it's an educated guess based upon historical SLIs and data. Also, another cool thing we learned, what's great about sort of innovative or transformative projects like this is that when you involve other people, there was a SRE in our bank, our bank side, that said, hey, Aaron, can we do this? Can we actually do this to assess vendors, third parties, right? Because like we're not violating an SLA, right? A service level agreement that we have in a contract. We're just introducing degraded performance that's happening already. Latency is happening whether you like it or not, right? We're just introducing small amounts of it to test how well our application, not on the vendor, on our applications where the vendor agents are working. And our cyber teams at CapitalOne are also using this for the same purposes. So some things to remember. Resilience is hard. It's hard work, right? You have to earn it, right? Hoping your system's going to work. Engineers, we don't believe in hope and luck. We believe in instrumentation, measurement, right? Tell me did it work? Did it not work? But give me feedback so I know what to do. Chaos engineering is not about breaking stuff. Do not leave here thinking that. If you are struggling to come to terms with that, let's talk afterwards. Because I don't want you going back to your job, say, hey, boss, let's break stuff. You know, that's not what we're doing. I make jokes sometimes that people pay me to break stuff. Well, that's not true. It paid me to find problems, find defects in the system proactively. Chaos engineering is about navigating complexity. Grave failure. If you want to leave here with something cool to go research, I'm finding this is one of the most interesting areas of computer science. I mean, everybody's super excited about generative AI. It's amazing stuff, right? But like, our systems are failing all the time. If we're not really going to get to great applications of that, if our systems are breaking beneath us, right? But grave failures are this area that's really left unexplored. And Microsoft is sort of the first research in here, but there's a lot of, like, SLOs are one tool there. This methodology I presented today is another, but we don't have a lot there, right? We need more tooling, more ways to explore grave failure. And yeah, that's all I have. Do you guys have any questions? I think I ended about 2 minutes early, so thank you. Thank you.
Impressive and not chaotic at all. Guys, do we have any questions? Because here in Slido, I have one. How are you injecting latency added through?
Who asked that question? That is a great question.
Through point, yes.
That is an excellent question. Yeah. It depends. So there's actually another "oh really" meme for like it depends as an answer to all technical questions. It depends on the tech stack, right? So we start off, what made this possible, so when I went to CapitalOne, they hired me to take them to the next level of chaos engineering. So, okay, I've been working on this idea for 6 years, right? I think this is how we do this going forward, because the 100% failure modes are too much to handle. Well, so but turns out the environment at CapitalOne was homogeneous. What I mean by that is like they're all AWS, right? And AWS has a fault injection service, the FIS. And essentially, they have an agent, SSM, that sits on your AMI, or sits wherever you need it on a container, and it triggers traffic control, Linux TC, right? So the service, FIS, the service calls the agent. The agent is a custom agent AWS wrote, so it is secure. You can do this very securely. It's only because AWS provides this and they secure it and they own the IAM plane, control plane. But we call TC traffic, Linux traffic. It's just Linux traffic control. It's the Linux module, and it queues the packets on the endpoint. That's kind of how we do it for containers and. Except for Fargate. Fargate's complicated. Fargate's really complicated, actually. We're figuring that out now. But Lambdas, CapitalOne is also the largest serverless company on AWS. And so we're doing injection via Lambda layers there. But I hope to open source some of this stuff so you guys can see the particulars, but that's kind of how we're doing it. It does get tricky on tech stacks because this doesn't exist out of the box. The latency injection methodology is one of the key components to the tech stack. So as we keep going to different tech stacks, we have to figure that out. So that's why I said that. That's why. Oh, we have more questions. Okay.
Yes. So Daniel asked, would you also classify red teaming activities as chaos engineering? I'm prioritizing.
Oh, did we skip one though?
No, we are not skipping. I'm just prioritizing the ones with names.
Okay. So red teaming is different than chaos engineering. I get that all the time. There's a couple articles I wrote on the internet about that. If for chaos engineering for cybersecurity, the closest thing it is to maybe purple teaming, but even purple teaming is not really the same. Red teaming is really, with chaos engineering for security, we're introducing small amounts of failure, targeted failure, right? I'll inject, let's say, a misconfigured firewall rule to test whether or not we catch the misconfigured firewall rule, right? We're not trying to attack the system because you're sending too much information to a distributed system. It's garbage in, garbage out. You don't know what worked, what didn't. And our goal is not to attacking it in. That's what a red team is trying to do. We're trying to verify the engineering components of the system and the process. That's what more of a red team is doing. There was a great question back there, though. Where'd it go? The question about, can I answer this one?
Yeah,
okay.
He's probably putting his name now.
Okay, this one.
Yeah. Is there someone doing chaos tests by aligning requests on a current time? So
I think this is how this question is being asked. But some of our SRE teams for our core platform came to me like, Aaron, when you're doing this LSI test, we need to align the timing of this so it's not the same time as our function test. I said, why do you think that, right? Well, we're to test the front end for latency and whatnot. Okay, well, do you think that your front end is not encountering constant degradation? Do you want to know what it looks like in the real world? Or do you want to do it when there are no problems? Probably a little bit of both you need. But so we actually do both. But I think it's important because if you have an application or product that has a high bounce rate from customers will leave if it has so much latency, you probably do need to do your function tests along with something like this to ensure that it can withstand it. So I like that question, whoever asked that.
John asked, since injecting latency is perturbing or disturbing the system and shipping engineering changes are also perturbances or disturbances, is there a Heisenberg uncertainty problem?
This must be John Willis. No, is that you? Oh, how about the Edge LEI? Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, that's a good idea. That's what you did for, yeah, totally. Yeah, well, there's a joke there. John can tell you that if you want to know it. So let's see. Okay, so that's a great question. Who asked that? That's a really great question. Okay, so shipping changes also causes perturbances. So this is an issue for me, right? Because in some places I've worked in the past, I will not name any company, right? But this is my past, right? We used to say that incidents are caused as a result of changes. We ship software. Non-incidents are caused from changes. So one of the issues is that I think what we're doing is we're we're injecting a controlled condition in the system, and we're slowly pushing it to a boundary. We're not going over the boundary that we know. We're pushing it, trying to find out what it really is. We have a better understanding of maybe what changes, what are the things, what are the components that are causing the change that causes the incident. I think we're actually reducing uncertainty by creating confidence, but that's an interesting question. Yeah, we can talk more afterward if you're around. Yeah. It's already uncertain. It's by the fact that that is totally true. John said that he said we make the argument that the system's already uncertain. Totally. That's the chaos in chaos engineering. And we're not doing the chaos. The system's already chaotic. We're the only ones creating order with chaos engineering. So that's an important distinction.
Guys, before we go, I have 4 very important announcements. The weather is changing, yes. There should be some umbrellas at the water cooler back there. So if you need an umbrella, there will be one there. Don't forget to give our speaker his appreciation with a feedback. You know that I am a sucker for our sponsors, so please go check our sponsors during your lunchtime. And after the conference, there will be the ultimate craft conference party at the Formlabs office at Andrassy Youth. If you don't know where that is, you can ask us directly or ask around. Remember, there will be some umbrellas at the water cooler, so just go and grab one, all right? Thank you very much. Have a great lunch, and we'll see you back here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We'll see you back here at 1:40, all right? 1:40. Thank you very much, guys.